Pastor Clay asked me to share my story. He asked me about something that happened in 1995. I had a brain aneurysm in the front lobe of my brain that ruptured. And he was asking questions about it. And because I'm sitting here, you know that God restored me physically and mentally. But I felt like that I had a story that maybe more people could relate to. Back in the day when I worked with kids, we had a lot of kids from the trailer park. And they'd say, Miss Lois, you just don't understand. You live up there in your big fancy house. You drive your fancy car, Miss Lois. You just don't understand. But when I shared with those kids, I said, you know what? I grew up in much poverty. I grew up in this, of course, they don't understand the word dysfunction, but I grew up in such dysfunction. My mother was an alcoholic. There were 6 children. I'm the oldest. My dad was sick and crippled my whole life. So I grew up in that. I became an adult at about 10 or 11 years old. And so I do know what it's like. I've been through 3 marriages, 2 of them alcoholics. The very thing I swore that I would never do, I did. Fast forward to 1998. I was active in the church. I taught kids. I was active in women's ministry. I came to prayer. My personal life was a disaster. My professional life was great too. I was really at the peak of my profession. But my life was a mess. My life at home was chaos. It was just war all the time. And so in 1998, I had a fall that injured me pretty bad. 5 days later, my dad had a stroke that took his life. A couple of months later, the company that I worked for sold. So I didn't even know if I was going to have a job or not. And then I got a really nasty, ugly divorce. All that happened in 6 months. I didn't want a divorce. It was not what I wanted. But sometimes we can't have what we want. We're dealt cards that we can't control. So during that time, I had a peace that I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, I didn't know where I was going to live, you know, what I was going to do. But I knew that no matter what happened, I was going to be okay. So we get a divorce. You know, I was sad because I didn't want a divorce, but there was a part of me that was so glad to not live in chaos all the time, to not have to worry about what I was going to face when I opened that door when I walked in from work. But yet I was sad. I didn't know how to not be married. That's all I had ever known, and that's what I wanted in life, but that wasn't what I had. I was dealing with emotions that I really couldn't identify, but I realize now those emotions were guilt and shame and self-condemnation. I kept thinking, what could I have done to make a difference? Well, what if I had done this? Or maybe if I had done that, things would have been different. I knew in my mind that there wasn't anything I could do, that I had tried to do everything that I knew to do. But when somebody wants to walk away, they're going to walk away. But one night in church, we had an altar call, and I went forward thinking it was for a physical thing. And the minute that person touched me, my mind and my spirit went somewhere else. And I started questioning God, but what about him? And I called my husband's name. And I didn't hear a voice speak into my human ears, but I heard a voice say, you're no longer bound to that union. You're free. I knew that the law of the land had given me a divorce, that I was free legally, but I was still bound to him emotionally and spiritually. After a little while, a spirit of laughter came on me, and I could not control it. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. And laughter's contagious. And every person I looked at would start laughing. And it lasted for a few days, even. It was hard to work the next day. And I just had such a joy. And then Abby Baggett, Pastor Clay's mother, had talked to me about becoming the women's ministry director. And my response was, I can't do that. I've been married 3 times. And worse than that, I've been divorced 3 times. I can't do that. And she said to me, that's why you're the one. That's when I really realized that I was free. It was like I had a key in the door. I knew that I was free. I knew that I was no longer bound, but I hadn't opened the door to walk out of it yet. The Lord had given me the oil of joy for the spirit of heaviness, and that He had given me a spirit, the best medicine there is, and that's a spirit of laughter. But guilt and shame and condemnation are no longer a part of who I am. It's a miracle, considering where I came from, what I've been through, that I'm actually an ordained minister. That just, I can't even comprehend that myself because of the sinful life that I lived, and the chaos that I caused and the hurt that I caused. It's a miracle. He loves you. He sees your pain. He sees your suffering. And He's the God of restoration. And He's the God that takes us where we cannot go without Him. God is faithful. But we have to do our part.